Hello, Beacon family, and it's a pleasure to join with you and your family this evening. And seeing as we have this avenue of technology to connect with families, we thought we would try something new, just kind of giving a prequel to tomorrow morning's message. In case you missed it earlier, Pastor Aaron is going to be preaching tomorrow morning from the book of Philemon. And so the first thing that we wanted to connect with you about is just to be in prayer this evening for Pastor Aaron. Tomorrow morning he'll be preaching at 10 a.m. live stream at beaconandclay.org. And the link is right there on the homepage and you can find that. So the first thing we'd ask from you is to just pray for our brother as he prepares to preach the word tomorrow. The second thing is we were thinking about our kids and how a lot of times in Big People Church, they have a hard time always feeling like it's at all like connecting with them. Like it's maybe sometimes over their head. We use words sometimes that, maybe a third grader or a second grader or fourth grader may not know. So we thought we'd just take a second to kind of talk through. Philemon is a less familiar book in character in the Bible. And so just a brief synopsis would be Philemon was a slave owner, right? And he had a slave named Onesimus. Onesimus stole something from him and ran away. Lo and behold, did I mix up the names?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying he meets Paul.
He meets Paul.
Who's in prison.
And then Paul shares the gospel with Onesimus, and Onesimus gets saved. Woohoo! Right? And then Paul tells Onesimus, guess what? I know your slave owner, Philemon, and I want you to go back. Right? So that's the basic story. So number one, we want them to pray for you. Number two, we want to encourage families to read the 25 verses of the book of Philemon so they can kind of follow the storyline. Third thing we wanted to do tonight was talk about vocabulary. Are you going to use any terms in tomorrow's message that might not be as familiar to our younger listeners?
So yes, I will use terms because there are a few that come right out of the text that you'll read hopefully this evening. And I would like the kids and everyone, right, to just be able to understand and have these things in their mind as we come in. Number one is appeal. Appeal just means strong request. When the Davis family, when Pastor Mike was
Trying to go to Ireland?
with a visa, and they rejected him, he then made an appeal to them to ask, will you reconsider? The second term is credited. Credited is just a transfer that takes place. And
we thought of an illustration.
Yeah.
It's like if we went out for ice cream and I had no money in my pocket and I get the ice cream cone and Pastor Aaron says, you can credit that to my account. You're going to pay the bill. I get to enjoy the ice cream cone. So how might that term fit into tomorrow's message with Onesimus and Paul and all that?
Yeah, so Paul tells Philemon, if whatever he stole from you, whatever harm that did to you financially, credit that to my account. I'll pay it. So Onesimus gets to go scot-free.
Okay. So he gets off. He gets the ice cream cone.
Yep.
And Paul's going to pay the tab, if there is any.
Exactly.
And I think that's Paul's point is, really, Philemon, with all that I've done for you, really you ought to let him off the hook. Is there a little bit of that in the text?
Yeah,
I've heard that a few times I've read through Philemon. Okay, good. So you said three terms, third term, yeah.
Last one is restoration.
Yeah.
Less of it's may not actually be used, but there's this idea that Onesimus really wants to be restored is a shorter term for restoration. It just means the same thing. Onesimus wants to be restored to Philemon, and Paul is asking Philemon to take Onesimus back in. So that just means that peace would happen, the relationship would be restored, it would be made right. Things would go back to the way they were when everything was good.
Okay, so last question. A lot of times, especially when I'm preaching, I'm not always so careful to say, and kids, you can apply today's message this way. I'll often say, parents or young people or husbands and wives. But how could kids connect with tomorrow's message in a meaningful way? Like, what's the application that you're wanting kids to take away from tomorrow's message? And hopefully, like I said, they'll read the text after they're done watching this goofy video you and I have put together, because we are not. I broke the Corona rule. I touched you. I'm so sorry. But elbow, right.
Elbow.
Hopefully, after watching this, they'll read it. But what's the takeaway? What do you want them to take away from the message tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hopefully they'll get more out of it than just what I'm about to say. But one thing that I want kids, especially in this time where they're at home,
Trapped in their homes.
isolated, with the siblings and the parents and all of that, how to be effective. And you're like, well, what does it mean to be effective? Well, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow to find out. But once you know what it means to be effective, that you would be effective in the home.
Ooh. So
in relation to your parents and in relation to your siblings.
Okay.
In this time of...
So apparently, they're going to learn something about this word effective that's going to make sense tomorrow. And you're telling them that when you bring that last piece of the puzzle together tomorrow morning, they're going to know what that means and how they can directly apply the message of Philemon this week. Excellent. So, hey, this is our first go at this, and we hope it's a blessing to you. God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.